Speaking of wrist, we do have a question specifically from Alan Lang. Our buddy Alan Lang always gives great questions. Thanks, Alan. And he says, "What is your favorite wrist exercise slash warm up do you like to do? And do you focus on the entire body or just arms and shoulders during a typical warm up?" Maybe let's start with I don't know, Elizabeth.
Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Somebody else should start.
We need the sneeze. We need it. I don't know. How about Alyssa?
So, for me, I kind of keep it simple, but I also see how I'm feeling each day. I generally like to start with like double stop movements, also doing, 8 on a hand, stick control, that kind of stuff, focusing mostly on just movement and how the movement feels, and going through a variety of tempos with hopefully a reflection, usually, so I can really see what's going on.
You mean a mirror or with
mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so either a mirror or a lot of times what I do, if I don't have a mirror, is I just use my phone and put it, in selfie mode and just watch myself. Mm-hmm. Checking out my posture. I know that's more than just the arm and the wrist, but for me, I actually had a car accident fairly recently, so I'm trying to work through some neck things. So I'm trying to also make sure that when I'm doing all of that, like my posture is really good as well. In that warm-up sequence.
Yeah. Anybody else with that?
Yeah, I start on the floor every day, and that's because of some car accident things. And I use some physical therapy things from that and some Alexander technique base exercises. And then when I warm up, I also am incorporating stretches. So I start big and then get smaller. And then in between, maybe every couple minutes, then I still do another big stretch. But perhaps other people don't need to do such big adjustments. But in general, I start out and go in.
I bet everyone has something. Nate, do you have one for this?
Yeah, there's a book called The Wharton Stretch Book. It's on active isolated stretching. Literally saved me the week before a recital. Can't recommend it enough. And it's stretches that take very little time. You can do them throughout the day. It's recommended you do them 4 to 5 times a day. So rather than sort of stretching before I play, I'm sort of stretching throughout the day. Another thing that I use, where is it? Right over here. It's a grip strengthener for rock climbing. Uh-oh, we lost.
Oh, do you rock climb?
No, I don't actually.
But it's the like.
It's this little donut, and it's just for little compressions, and it's just amazing. You feel it all through here. I keep one in my car too, so while I'm driving, always have one hand on the wheel. No drum rolls during it, but you can. I try and do stretching periodically throughout the day, not just when I'm about to play.
Yeah, sure. I literally not hurt my wrist. My wrist was very sore for one of my master's recitals because I was playing Guitar Hero so much. The Guitar Hero 3 came out, and I thought, I don't have a choice. I just have to do this. Not a good idea. Yeah, Brad, why don't you talk about warm up and stretching a little bit?
Well, obviously it's super important, and I really encourage my students to do about 15 to 30 minutes before they practice. Especially being students, I know that their days while being very busy, this is the most important time where they develop the good habits. And also, a lot of the stretching, full range activities are going to be kind of like oriented around double verticals and double laterals. If you're thinking about marimba, just big strokes at a full volume at a medium tempo. I found that throughout my career, and I know I'm not that old, but time for practicing gets shorter and shorter. So every now and then I do have to cut out warming up. And so I find that sometimes if I'm on the road and I'm doing a tour and I've only got 20 minutes to, warm up, I don't have the 5 minutes I can dedicate to double verticals, which I recommend Brian Zader's book, The Keyboard Fundamentals, for all the warm-up stuff. It's a great place to really kind of branch off from. It has some very simple exercises that you can very easily start to vary and put in different keys and stuff. But for me, when it's game time and you're on tour on the road and you just got done with dinner and you just had to set up the stage for 45 minutes of your 1 hour warm-up time. Sometimes I find that just playing a solo slow and being really mindful of not trying to play that at tempo, because it'll be at tempo for the recital because it's the recital, but playing at something like 65 to 70% speed allows me to review some notes that I maybe haven't played in a day or two, while also getting my hands back in shape and feeling good about what the performance is going to be, because I'm not using time for one thing or the other. I'm kind of combining. So that's just one of my tips that I use for, obviously not in place of a good proper warm up and stretching and fundamentals, but it definitely has been something I've had to use as I get a little bit busier and I've got, less time during my lunch break and less time when I'm on touring. So just throwing that out there. It's not ideal, but it's definitely better than nothing.
On the same topic, I think people often ask about warm up versus chop building, and because often they're the same, but they don't do the same thing. Like if you're just warmed up, you're like you didn't attain new ability, you just warmed up. And I feel like I know I went through a phase, and back to the Kevin Putz piece, like that would be an example of something that is very warm up-esque, but taking it to a place where no, you like attained new ability. You leveled up in the video game world, Brad. Yeah. So I guess a question there, like how do you any recommendations for building chops in a healthy way?
Building chops in a healthy way, it's all just sort of dedicated practice, very, very mindful, right? That's one of the buzzwords nowadays, is just being mindful about your motion, sort of making sure that you know exactly what you're capable of. And a lot of times we can measure that in beats per minute, and then slowly, methodically increasing what you're trying to do. I'm at 120. My goal is by the end of the week to be up to 126, and sort of the same way with weightlifting, understanding that the further you get into it, the less you're going to see these sorts of gains. And so not just being mindful about what you do, but being aware of your expectations and not trying to overshoot. But
yeah, well, and this one seems like a fast track to injury, because you can get better. It's like, well, the more I do this, the quicker this is going to get better. And I'm so excited to play velocities, but I need more technique and chops to play velocities. So instead of going from 120 to 126, which is very reasonable, like Nate said, well, I'm going to go from 120 to 1,000 in a week. And yeah, Elizabeth, what do you think about that?
Yeah, there's something that the Fitbits do, where you can set it to vibrate. Does anybody here have a Fitbit?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not sure what you have. Do you have it set to vibrate if you've been stationary for a certain amount of time?
Yes.
Okay. How often?
I think it's like every 15 minutes.
Oh, wow. You are an achiever.
I don't know that I always do it, but
well, that might actually be good for a chop building thing, because then it would make you stop. I mean, 15 minutes to 20 minutes is great, because you can end up sitting there and as we know, we can maybe mindful, but also obsessively playing and playing and playing. So if sometimes I tell people or myself, I'll set a timer on my phone, because I don't have that, but those are also excellent. You take a break and you reset. So go take a walk down the hall, literally clear your brain for a second, reset all of your bones, maybe do a quick stretch, and then go again. It's a mini version of what everyone has been talking about with the consistent, slow amount over time. Resetting prevents any of those strange habits we can maybe acquire as we're drilling through something.
My most recent goal has been posture, and I was playing a solo concert at the Italy PAS competition, and Rude Wiener's wife, Audrey Burry, happens to be a physical therapist, and she saw my performance, She's like, that was really good. Your posture is horrible, which it is. I like hunch over the snare drum and like, you take your whole body and like focus it into what you're doing, which means you like curl and arch over the instrument. And yeah, you have this like I have this terrible, terrible posture. But she gave me this like quick, very nice, thorough assessment. And, and she gave me this really simple homework. And it was buy a bunch of either a pad of sticky notes or better yet, buy some colored stickers, just like round red stickers, and go into places you commonly go, like say the bathroom or your office, and put a red sticker on your computer screen. Boop, like red sticker here, red sticker on the mirror in the bathroom, red sticker wherever. And every time you see a red sticker, you're going to think about your posture and you're just going to adjust. And that way it becomes really habitual and it
Yeah.
not just this thing like, oh, I know I should do that. It's like we were talking, gosh, an hour ago now about telling students is one thing, but making it become a habit is something that's really, really different. It's not enough
Right.
just to be told sometimes, like, no, you have to somehow ingrain it into your behavior. And yeah, I mean, yeah, she really helped me a lot with that. And I really did go and do it. And I can tell, like, I probably need to go do that again because the old habits are slipping back. Yeah.
One of the people that I remember that helped most with thinking about posture and stuff like that has been Chris Lamb. He did a clinic like 10 years ago I saw, and he played the beginning of the third movement of Scheherazade, and everybody and their mom hunches over the snare to get their eyes as close to that bearing edge as possible. But he just played it standing up straight. It looked like he was just walking down the hallway, and it just kind of opened my eyes, and I said, you know what? He's pretty darn good. If he can stand up and play Scheherazade, I think I can stand up and try playing snare drum myself. And that was kind of an eye opener to see that the professionals, they don't hunch over. That's just something we do in the practice room because our eyes want to take over. So
Right.
Yeah. And it's everywhere. I mean, it's when you're sitting at your office, you're in a chair, it's when you're eating. I mean, it is literally all the time we tend to do it. And yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, think it looks so much better to do when you're playing, but man, try to conquer it everywhere,
Yeah. Well, and kind of going back to the idea of chop building for a second, something that I try to reinforce with my students is that doing drum corps can be one of those great chop building events in their life. The great part about drum corps is that they have an instructor in front of them that a lot of their time they're working on building chops. And so having someone like a personal trainer in the gym, having that, for an ensemble tech or having that snare drum tech can monitor, they can kind of, every day push them forward just a little bit more. And they're doing it with such volume that those small improvements over time of a summer are just amazing. So while I think it's a little harder to do on your own in a practice room because you don't have that personal trainer kind of person in front of you to help you push through those walls while also still making sure that you're not going too far too fast. So that's one thing that I just really promote with my studio.
I imagine it's like going to the gym with a buddy. You do better and you stay longer.
Yeah.
Right. Or like going to PASIC with a buddy. I go to more things that I need to go to if I go with a buddy.
Yeah.
Like fun run?
Like the fun run. Hey, we have a question from our friend Kai Stensgaard. He says, is Alexander technique a big thing in the US? I've been using it for 30 years, and I think I would not have been able to play marimba today without it. Just a recommendation. It taught me how to use and move my body while standing behind the marimba, and it helped me from not getting neck pain and other problems with pain in my wrist and arm. And it's funny, now that Kai says that, I think about how he plays, and yeah, he has just excellent posture, also a really tall person. Right. Yeah, he looks very, very comfortable when he plays. So I think someone mentioned Alexander technique a few minutes ago, maybe Elizabeth?
Yeah, I love it, and I am not trained. You need 1,000 hours to teach it, which means that when you go see somebody, they really know what they're talking about. So I've been doing that for the last year, going to have lessons, and the posture thing has really been wonderful for me because I always did a pretty good job with my back, but not with my neck. And again, that's the personal trainer idea, is you have somebody looking at you and telling you what's going on. It's wonderful. And it's been very, also because I realized that I was talking to my students about playing in a healthy way and approaching the instrument in a healthy manner, but I wasn't modeling it well anymore. I'm of a certain age now, and I have certain learned, behaviors, and muscles get tense, and I might not know that my shoulder's up or something, or I'm got a crooked neck one day. And so it's marvelous. I don't think it's as common here. I mean, have you folks done it?
I've done it a number of times. The only times I've ever seen it is when it's like presented at clinics, though. It's
Okay.
not a topic that a lot of people tend to discuss. And I think the first time I saw it was back in about 2009. And I think I can count on one hand the amount of clinics that I've been to on it. And at the first time I did it, I'm like, this is amazing. Why is this not more of a thing? And so I think it's great. I think Alexander Technique and Rolfing are two things that just need to be sort of, they could be great. I mean, it won't turn you into Kai Stensgaard, maybe, but maybe it'll help get you there a little bit.
You said Alexander and Rolfing? I don't know.
Rolfing, Rolfing.
Is that another technique?
It's a similar sort of idea. I mean, it was something that I talked about with my massage therapist a while back. But it's the same sort of idea where you're teaching your body how to act in accordance with itself, right? The idea of Alexander Technique, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is just that you're having your body work as efficiently as possible. It's that everything is working the way the muscles are sort of designed to. So it's similar to that. But again, we're not doctors. I'm not an authority, so go see a professional.
We had someone, I think it was Josh Jones on the podcast, talked about Feldenkrais technique, which I guess is also related. So I guess we have Alexander, Feldenkrais, and Rolfing.
I think that the one problem about Alexander and Feldenkrais, or one reason why it's not more widespread, is it does work best if it's one-on-one. And so you have these sessions of Alexander or Feldenkrais, but you maybe only one or two people are going to go up front and be adjusted. So if I just highly recommend both, but you have to find somebody. It's like finding a teacher for an instrument.
I've only heard great things. The people who know it swear by it. Conductors, I've heard talk about it. Lots of players. Yeah, certainly. And I think, like Nate, I can count on the hand. I think I can say 2 sessions I've ever had on it, some presentation. And Delcros is something else, right? Delcros?
Yes. That's more movement based, I'm pretty sure. It's like moving in an area rather than while we're playing just standing there.
Yeah.
But yoga can help too. And anything with somebody who's trained to work with musicians. But even massage, if you go to the same masseuse more than once, right? And somebody gets to know you and how you're put together.
Right. I wonder if the reason it's not so prevalent, because like we've all said, people really swear by it and people who know it really, really like it. And I wonder why we don't see it regularly, at least in music school, at universities. I'm guessing it's because the curriculum is already so chocked full. I mean, there's so many things we could be doing on top of what's already there that would be good. But I know, gosh, I mean, back to the wellness and mental health thing, I mean, so many people can't get to some of these things that they know are dang good for them, even if it's just like eating well, taking time to go to the grocery store and get what you need, or sleeping more or whatever, because they just are so desperate to, do well in this very, very competitive business.
Well, maybe this is a kind of a nice way to tell people who do know about any of those different areas to submit applications and proposals to things like PASIC and Midwest and all the MEAs around the country, because it sounds like it's something a lot of us have. And I've had one or two master classes on it and with large groups, but that was a long time ago. So maybe that's something that could be a part of some more submissions if people are trained in that, because it sounds like this could be, another area that I know it's not new, but there's always a resurgence of stuff every now and then. And, sounds like it might be of interest. So anyone out there in internet land, if you know about those things, start applying to some conferences.
Well, I have to say those one or two sessions I saw on Alexander Technique, they were really impactful. Maybe it did increase mindfulness towards posture, mindfulness towards efficiency. So even if you don't have time to really master this skill or develop it and get into like your regular life, I mean, a session may really be illuminating. Well, Brad, I was going to ask you about some of the things you do and prescribe regarding goal setting and scheduling specifically.
Well, that's a great topic that you bring up. I'm so glad you asked about
it. Wasn't pre-planned at all.
No, not at all. So one of the big things that I find is especially important with mental health and wellness of students is just talking about how to goal set and how to plan their day, week. And I really talk about it from a large to small scale thing. So, big thing about goal setting and me with my students is I say, okay, here's this new solo. Let's just approximate how long it's going to take us to learn. And okay, 3 weeks. So by the end of the first week, we should have the whole thing learned at 50% tempo. Second week, the whole thing learned at 90% tempo, and yada, yada. And then we'll break it down. So you got the solo today. Let's look at the solo. It's, 5 pages long. Let's have at least a page and a half learned at 50% tempo by the end of today. And then your goal tomorrow, if you make that, adjust accordingly if you don't. And so by giving them kind of a very formulaic process, it really helps them because, especially entering college, they just like kind of freak out early on and say, wow, there's a lot more music that I'm expected to learn a lot quicker. And I always try to reinforce the fact that it doesn't mean quantity for quantity's sake. It's about, when you're in high school, you have English class, you have math, history, and everything every day. Whereas, as your education progresses, you start to focus more and more on your music classes. And so then they start to realize, okay, if I plan out my day and I plan 2 hours of practice, then I have to know that I'm hitting my scales warm-ups for 15 minutes. And then I'm hitting, my 2-mallet solo for 20 minutes and then my 4-mallet solo for 40 minutes. All right. And then I'm going to hit my snare lesson versus really when we give them things. And I found that in years past, I'd give them, 3 mallet things and 2 snare things, and their eyes would just kind of do the bug out thing. And I'm like thinking in my head, it's like, well, you got 7 days. And in their mind, they're like, I need it learned all by tomorrow. And so I think just becoming a more mature teacher, being able to help my students understand that it's not due tomorrow, but you got to start working on it today and do, all the pieces, all your warm-ups every day to make that consistent progress rather than the binge and purge process of working one thing for 3 hours and then putting that away for 3 days while you work one more thing the next day. And by doing that, they start to get a little bit more control over their schedule. And I know I've seen it a lot. Students, I don't think students are any worse than they used to be at scheduling themselves, but I definitely have noticed that I need to talk a lot more about it than I have maybe, even 5 or 6 years ago. And so I feel like that's really helped set my students up mentally to be a little bit better focused and have an idea of what to do.
Have you ever had that student where you look at their schedule and you literally don't see practice time? I mean, not that they didn't put it in, but you can't see like ethically where to tell them to practice because their schedule is just crazy.
No, I tell them to practice regardless. So.
Okay.
No, at that point though, a lot of times I'll look at their schedule and, I'm the advisor for all my percussionists. So if it could be a bad semester in terms of having enough free time to practice and get stuff done, I really reinforce the fact that they're not in college to just get a degree and move on. They're really in college to learn. And if they're taking just as many classes as possible to try to get done as fast as possible, then they're really going to miss out on a lot of the achievements and goals that they would if they just spaced it out a little bit more. I know with ed majors, it's perfectly feasible to get graduated in 4 years, but a lot of times I see them graduating in 4.5 to 5, because if they tried to do it in 4, they might get there, but chances are they're probably going to fail a class or not be able to practice and study as much as they need to. And so, if there needs to be that conversation as their advisor, I'm always happy to just talk about, this semester is going to be a little rough. So let's talk about, we got 20 hours this semester. Maybe we need to back it off to like 15, and that's a really good load. And if we still want to graduate in 4 years, maybe there's summer classes, a winter semester that can help you stay on that track that you want to as well. But I really think that the goal setting and advising class schedules can be huge for making them feel like they can achieve what they can.
Yeah.
How delicate will you be with them? Because I know I've had students say, oh, but I really want to do this extra thing, and I really want to do this other thing, and I really want to do this other personal goal. And usually I kind of wimp out. I usually say like, well, my advice is that you should do less, and that you should do, like I was saying earlier, you should just try the bare minimum, see what that feels like, because just the requirements alone are really tough. But I usually wimp out. I usually end up saying like, I'm not their father, man. I can't make them actually do this. I can really advise it, give you my firm, strong opinion, but after that, what do you do?
I think that that's really challenging. It's something that I think we all struggle with, is trying to get students to understand what we think they can handle versus what they think they can handle. And the hard part is that everyone goes through, like, we are really stubborn as human beings. We do not like being told what to do. We like to figure it out for ourselves, regardless of who tells us and how amazing that person of a teacher is or whatever. The thing that I try to do is, instead of telling them just, hey, I think that's too much for you, I say, okay, you want to get a job at Taco Bell? That's cool. I mean, you got to pay your rent, and if your parents aren't helping you, you got to figure it out. So let's talk about how much you can actually schedule yourself versus just letting your manager go hog wild and put you down for 40 hours a week. And so a lot of times I talk to them by, again, bringing up their schedule, their calendar. I say, okay, where in here do you see that you can just add in work and still be successful with classes? And sometimes that means, really trying to, like, I put in time to eat, time to sleep, things like that in their schedule, because a lot of times, Sherry Rubens is great about this. She kind of was the first one to catch me on to students not eating lunch. And so I actually keep protein bars in my desk drawer, because I've had a couple students and they're like just famished. They can't concentrate. They're hungry. They've been going since 7 a.m. and it's like a 3 o'clock lesson. And so when it's time to add in things like a job on the side, or if they're trying to add on another class, a lot of times I'll say, okay, let's literally pull out your schedule and go hour by hour through the week and see when you can study, when you can practice, and then when you can work on top of that. And a lot of times they still get the job, but at least we've gone through their schedule and they can see that, okay, I really have to manage my time well. Sometimes it's just a train wreck. And, we, like what the Batman quote, why do we fall? So we can pick ourselves back up. I think that's a great thing that we've all done ourselves. And sometimes the students have to experience, because we were students and we've experienced that as well. So you kind of have to be their mom or dad to an extent, but you can also try to show them logistically what you're thinking, because you know that they're not seeing the full picture. And so how can you get them to do that without saying, just trust me, or I told you so? And then sometimes they're still going to do it. And then you just got to encourage them to keep pressing through and do as best they can. Because a lot of times I have quite a few students that work secondary jobs, and I wish they have to, but I know it's just a absolute necessity for them to pay rent and to eat and to pay their tuition, So what's the point of me telling them not to work if they can't come to school as well?
Right.
Which Batman said that? Because that
was it the second last one? It's not Batman. It was Alfred.
It was Alfred. Yeah, it's in the first Dark Knight movie.
Okay, because that strongly, the validity of that matters depending on which Batman movie said that, because the Batmans have been such varying quality. Does anyone else have a thought about this?
Yeah, I have two thoughts. One thing is that now that I have gray hair, I can point to it and say, I've seen this many times, and I try to stay away from the. I've seen many students, because, like Brad said, people never want to hear about other people. And they never want to hear that they can't do something. But instead I say, what I can tell you is that your career will be long and you don't have to do it all right now. And that seems to be reaching people more. So you don't have to do it all this semester, for example. But yeah, here in Trinidad, our students have very busy lives and they have multiple responsibilities, just like the students who have to get jobs to pay for school. A lot of these folks have families and they already have jobs, and some of them are already professional musicians, and you can't tell somebody not to work or not to have a child.
Yeah.
But you can tell them that maybe it's not all going to happen right this semester, but over time they'll have plenty of time to get it all done. But the thing with scheduling is I do it with them. I have to do my schedule new every semester because my schedule's new. I'm figuring my schedule out right now. Today is one of my jobs. And so that's one way I can model, as some of you folks were talking about earlier, because I'll show them and they'll see me working on it.
I was gonna say it's really hard to tell someone, and I have done it before, but just said, hey, you don't have to be in college right now.
Yeah.
Like if their personal situation is as such, or they absolutely have to be doing 2 jobs or something. And I've said it before, and I feel so lucky my parents said it to me when I was just finishing high school and thinking about applying and all this stuff. I remember I was in the car with my mom and she just said, you don't have to go to college at all. You don't, and like, I don't know if people that's maybe that was a reasonable idea back then. I don't know if it still is, but I partly wonder, way back to the beginning of the episode when we mostly did mental health, and we said, it was brought up at PASIC and several panel discussions that the health centers are overwhelmed and flooded at so many universities with students trying to get treatment and help and advice. And I've always wondered, I have no data to support this, but I kind of wonder if part of it is just the, hey, everyone goes to college mentality. You go whether you want to or not, or you don't even know what to do next, so you go. And I know that if I were Gal, it's like, well, I have to go to college. What's the thing I like most? I guess I like music most. Okay, I better do that. But I don't really know what I'm getting into. And all of a sudden I'm getting thrown ear training, theory, piano, expected all these expectations that I just didn't really expect. Yeah, I'd be wanting help too. I mean, I think that'd be a very normal reaction. So I kind of wonder. Again, it's just a off the cuff theory I've had, but if it's like the college culture that's doing this, it's the everyone goes to college thing that is causing this to be so widespread, because those are the only 2 things that correlate that are so widespread. I know kids are different, but I don't think they're that different.
Well, and I think that especially, kind of what you're talking about with college is the same thing with working. I've had some students that they feel like when they go to college, they have to work because they really they have the best intentions. They want to help their parents out. They want to minimize their financial, withdrawal from things like, loans and stuff. And so in their mind, they're like, well, I don't want to graduate with a lot of debt, so I'm going to take this minimum wage, 40 hours a week job. Well, when they do that, and this is a conversation or part of it that I have with my students, is I say, you're here to be an investment for yourself.
Right.
And just like with every investment, you have to put in what you can early on, and that will lead to huge gains later. But if you wait on what you put into yourself, i.e. the education, the practice, the studying, the learning, and you put that off, then you're going to be later and then be in the job, and you're not going to have nearly investment in yourself that you could have had you used that time for more self-improvement rather than just minimizing financial impact of college. Because I've had a lot of students and they go and they work for a summer and they'll make $2,000 to $3,000, and I hate to say it, but books take about half of that, and then they just chop off a little on their tuition. They still have to take out loans. And I tell them, maybe consider doing a drum corps or some summer festivals, do some summer camps, do what you can And if you have to work, great. But, a lot of times over the summer, that's a great time for self-improvement. And during the semester, especially if you're trying to put a job in the middle of all of your studying and classes, and rehearsals and concerts, it's just, it really is not a great investment most of the time. And a lot of times they're really well-meaning. They're like, I just don't want this to be so hard on my parents. And like, to that, it really tugs at my heartstrings. But I know that if they told their parents, hey, this is a big investment for me, and this Taco Bell, or I should not knock Taco Bell because good tacos, but this minimum wage job is causing me to fail classes or get D. And when they fail a class and they are working that job, they literally worked enough to pay for taking that class again, and that's really hard to watch and see.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Gosh, we haven't heard from Alyssa in a while. Do you have anything to add to this?
Well, I think with the students that I've encountered that need to work, things that I'm trying to suggest them to do is to look into trying to work within the field. So maybe that is reaching out to a local school and asking, are there things that I can do? Maybe not, maybe I can't be there for the full time you need me to be there, but you need an instructor for a small amount of time. Doing summer camps, working, teaching them, especially for the percussionists, because I think the reality is that most of us will do some teaching. And so I think that way they're still making some sort of income, understanding how to like build a career in the field, but also learning how to like schedule those things, because I think the scheduling stuff that you guys were talking about has been fantastic, because as a freelancer, that is like the hardest part of like living is just dealing with the schedule and how it changes week to week. But yeah, like do stuff in the field so you're getting experience, but you're still kind of, you're showing your face, you're doing things that are helping you as a teacher, you're teaching the thing that you're learning, so hopefully you're getting a better understanding of it. So that's usually the thing that I'm trying to encourage them to do. But more than anything, I'm a very, very strong-minded person, and I believe that if you say you're going to do something, you need to do it and you need to stick to it. And if you really want something, you will do whatever it takes to get it. And so I try to remind them that they need to kind of approach things from that sort of mindset. So if I have to work, then I will work, but I will not at the sacrifice of all these other things, and I'll do whatever it takes to do that.
Yeah, well, it's one of the old, you said try to work in the field if you have to work. It's an old piece of advice that Pat Hollenbeck gave to us all at Boston Conservatory while he was there. I caught him right at the end there before he retired from there. But yeah, he said try to work any job in music, even if it's at Virgin Records down the street. Like that is better than Taco Bell. I'm just gonna go along with Brad's vendetta against Taco Bell. But that was that's a really good point. Who knows what kind of connections you'll make, even if you're a classical musician, but you're working at Virgin Records. Yeah, you'll meet people, you'll meet like-minded people, you meet musicians, you make connections, and so on and so forth. I think, Elizabeth, you were going to have a question for us all. Is that right?
Yeah. This is in regards to students helping each other. So the last place I taught, we had, I think they still do, have a formalized buddy system that students are assigned buddies in the percussion department to help each other, to help new students find out where the bass drum mallets and where is the locker for this, and how should this instrument be tuned, and don't forget to put your music away, or don't forget to cover the timpani. But there are bigger things like nutrition. And so I was wondering if you have come up with ways to help students. Brad, you said you keep bars in your office. I do too. I make sure that they know I have food. But do you have any other suggestions? It seems that food is really tough for some students to acquire or to figure out.
I'm glad JMU, the new food court there's so many healthy options. I'm really glad about that. And often what I see them carrying back into the hallway or whatever is something really healthy.
Nice.
Not always for sure, but I think just when that is available and there and in front of you,
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully that works. I mean, I know there's a lot of promotion towards that in this new food hub, and yeah, a lot of the new things they're putting in are these really really healthy options, and luckily like healthy is like becoming trendy and cool.
Well, when it comes to the buddy system, I tried that a few years ago, and I found that by literally assigning older students to younger students, I didn't have much luck. They felt like it was more of an assignment. So I really tried to, on a more daily basis and in private, encourage them to help each other. A lot of like just ask anyone around you, especially if they're older, but take care of each other, not as an assignment, but as a family. And I found that, while I wish some people helped a little more, at times I find that it works great because by creating that atmosphere of open questions and also observing, and hey, did you see blah blah blah, he looked really down in the hallway.
Right.
Maybe talk with them and ask them a question. Or I'm going to talk with them and ask them some questions if I see them. So really just kind of making everyone on high alert for being open for questions, and also everybody else and how they're doing.
Yeah, the culture you model and create. Yeah. And I have to say that's a wonderful thing I love about the studio here. I mean, they come into me and say the same thing. I saw so and so, they seemed a little down, or do you know what's going on, or oh, I don't know. We'll openly talk about them. It's very very nice and useful.
Yeah, it's really interesting because this same group of percussionists, particularly if you have a small studio, does so much together, orchestra, wind ensemble, percussion ensemble, marching band. And so they're around each other all the time. It's just sort of building that awareness to be checking in on people. And again, sort of leading by example. I always start every lesson by asking a student, how'd your week go? I know you had this big English assignment, or I heard you had a theory test this past week. How'd it go? How do you feel like you performed? Are you feeling okay about it? And so by having this open dialogue, by asking the questions, I hope I'm modeling behavior and sort of encouraging them to check in on each other too.
I shared my music history studying strategies with a student, and we spent so long doing it, and I was so proud when he passed. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
I don't care about he was working on Stuart Saunders Smith songs. Like, I don't care about that. Let's pass more history. It was so satisfying. Yeah. Well, oh yeah, one more thing. Go ahead, Brad.
Just one thing I had that I found really helpful, and Nate kind of touched on it, is especially getting students to talk. It's more important about asking them multiple questions. A lot of times I know everyone asks that when they come in, hey, how's it going? And just like when their parents ask them, they usually get a super generic answer, like, pretty good.
Living the dream.
My new one that I've found is people say kind of okay.
And
huge red flag for me, because kind of okay usually means I'm not doing well, but that's as much as I can muster in positivity. But I will say that if you say, how you doing? They say, pretty good. You say, how's theory going? We have a project going. Oh yeah, well, how's the football game? You make it on time? You stay out of the sun? And if you ask 3 or 4 questions, you start to finally get real answers. And that's just something I saw on like a Facebook article, and I really have found that to work. So I wanted to make sure everybody kind of knows about that, because I swear by it. Use it. It does.
I have had it go too far. A student will want to every lesson, like, you be their life coach.
Yes.
And it's one thing if they're still really, really struggling, but it's like, you're fine. Look, we need to play. All right. I like talking to you too, but we got to get some stuff done, because I think you're all right now, Yeah. Hey, well, wow, it's the Health and Wellness Committee, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining us, Alyssa Castro, Nate Gork, and Elizabeth D. Lemouter, and Brad Meyer, the fearless leader and chair. How much longer will you be chair, Brad?
I think this is my third year, so I think I can go up for another 3-term semester. And I'd like to, but I don't know if I would get kicked out because I suck at this. So
No, you seem good at this. I have heard from multiple people that the best committee is the health and wellness committee because
Hey.
it's everyone's nice and everyone gets along, and it's easy.
It's easy.
That's what I've heard.
Well, we try to just be as helpful as we can be. So I hope we're doing our gig.
Cool. No, you clearly are. So yeah, thanks so much for everyone who's been on health and wellness all over the years, and especially y'all for joining today. I think you guys, represent what y'all do really well, and it's really it's so great that we have health and wellness committee part of PAS. So, all right, hey, thanks everybody. We will catch you on episode probably 197, I think, because this will be a 2-parter. So, all right, bye everybody.
Thanks for having
so
us.
much.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, you're very welcome.